Here.
Rogers,
Present.
Sexton, Sollard,
Here.
Thorsland,
Here.
Cowart,
Present.
Crane, Esri,
Here.
Barney,
Here.
Fava,
Here.
Fortato, Greer,
Here.
Hanauer Friedman,
Here.
Lakshin,
Here.
Locke.
Here. Is there a motion for approval of the agenda and addenda? Ms. Vanich Theorenot, second by Mr. Esri. Any discussion? Mr. Sullard.
I have a couple amendments I'd like to propose. First is to move item 6, communications, to immediately before item 10, other business. And the other is to move item 9D2, the closed session, to immediately after item 5, public input.
Is there a second to that motion to amend? Ms. Hanauer Friedman, any discussion of the motion to amend? All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Any discussion of the agenda as amended? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes from August 12th, 2025? No motion. Ms. Vanich Theorenot, second by Ms. Lakshin. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Great. Moving on, public input. Mr. Jason Elliott Benda, please come forward. You know the drill. Green means go in this room.
Jason Benda, 1529 Lincolnshire Drive. I am a county employee in the facilities department. I'm a custodian with a duty assignment in Brookings. I was interested in looking at the agenda packet for tonight's meeting, in particular looking at the HR report, because my wife appears as the terminated employee in treasurer on the unemployment report. And as I was looking at it, I noticed that the top of the report still says 1776 East Washington, where the county executive has not been since April. And so I decided I wanted to appear before this committee tonight to give a message both of vigilance and of patience. Certainly, this location artifact should be fixed, and I'm sure that it will be now that I've brought it to the attention of this group. But we can't fix everything. And the fact that this is still here shows us how difficult it is to fix everything, how difficult this move has been, and conveying all the information about this move has been. I have a duty assignment at Brookings. In the last 6 business days at Brookings since September 1st, I have redirected at least one person here to Bennett to find the clerk, to find the recorder, to find this room for a grand jury proceeding that was going on, to find the treasurer collector, to find the board of review, to find the supervisor of assessments, to find the Veterans Assistance Commission, and one today to find planning and zoning. People are still going to Bennett, and people will continue to still go to Bennett for some time. Even if we eradicate all of the things that we can control, all of the location artifacts that we have, there's still artifacts in other places. I hear people say, well, my phone told me it was here. Well, the driver services facility told me it was here. Well, my bank told me it was here. Well, Google told me it was here. That's one of my favorites, honestly, because my response is, well, then tell Google that they're wrong. Sadly, Google is not a county employee. Oh, if that were the case, we would be in great shape. So there are all of these other artifacts that we can't control. But even if we could get all of that fixed, even if we could get all of the papers changed, even if we get all the computers changed, even if everybody outside advising the public knew the right information and knew what to tell them, we still have the one biggest thing that we can't change, which is, well, I've always come here. County offices were in Brookings for 29 years. There are people who've been coming for a substantial portion of that 29 years to deal with the clerk, to deal with the recorder, to deal with planning and zoning, to deal with treasurer and collector. So this is why I preach patience. We can do a lot of things, and we do a lot of things to try to reach the public, to try to reach the members of the public with limited English proficiency, to try to reach the members of the public with literacy issues. But we're still not going to reach everybody. And I know you all have constituents who I've seen in the last 6 days show up not realizing they're in the wrong place. And some do. Some show up and say, oh, I forgot you moved. I'm happier about those people because at least I don't have to disappoint them and tell them, no, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong building. We need to be patient. And I encourage everybody here to be patient for the next several months as we still deal with people who are showing up at Brookins who we want to serve and who need to be served by us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benda. That is the only public input slip I've received. If there's any other member of the public who wishes to address the board, now is the time. Going once, going twice. Sold. We have closed public input for the night. Moving on, we amended the agenda. Next up is a closed session. Mr. Esri, do you have a motion to make?
Yes, thank you. I move that we enter into executive session pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2 C11 to consider litigation that is probable or imminent against or on behalf of Champaign County. I further move that the following individuals remain present: Assistant State's Attorneys Joel Fletcher and Andrew Beckett, Director of Administration Michelle Jett, Budget Director Travis Woodcock, County Executive Steve Summers, Recording Secretary Megan Robinson, Technology Staff Paul Webb and Luke Armstrong. Don't know that missed anybody. And Joel's just coming in right now.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Farney, any discussion? All in favor of entering into closed
Roll call.
session? Oh, sorry, we have a roll call. Thank you.
Pugh,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Sollard,
Yes.
Thorsland,
Yes.
Vanich Theranot,
Yes.
Wiggs,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Cagle,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Cowart,
Yes.
Esri,
Yes.
Farney,
Yes.
Fava,
Yes.
Furtado, Greer,
Yes.
Hanauer Friedman,
Yes.
Lakshin,
Yes.
Locke.
Yes. Okay. Yes. All right, we are back in open session. Could somebody let our, thank you, perfect. We'll wait until the public comes back in and then we'll continue. Live streaming is back up. We thank the members of the public for being so flexible, coming and going, so we could take care of that really briefly. We're back in open session. Will the clerk call the roll one more time? Oh, no. No, we don't need to. Okay, perfect. Since we did not leave the room, we don't have to do that. We'll move along. We are going to Justice and Social Services, Chair Rogers.
Thank you. We have a CU Reparations Coalition presentation by Mr. Jeffrey Trask, if you would like to come up. And I believe your PowerPoint, Megan's coming to help you with that.
While you're setting up, Mr. Trask, I'd like to let the board know that you received an email not very long ago where there was a miscommunication about who was going to send it out, but you received an email from me with documentation from the CE Reparations Corp. So you can also check your email for further documents later on.
Okay, excellent. And we do have some information for y'all as well. First of all, thank you for having me this evening. It was a pleasure to talk to you all. I have a lot to say, so I'm going to try to get right to it and try to be as brief as I can. Take my 10 minutes and let you get back to your business. Just about me, just relevant for this conversation. I'm involved with reparations on multiple levels. Our local group is the Champaign Urbana Reparations Coalition, which you see a large group of us here. It's a local group that is trying to establish a reparations commission for African Americans for Champaign County. We're in the process of working with City of Urbana, City of Champaign. We want to work with you all and UIUC to try to get a joint commission established for that. I'm also on the state commission. It's called the African Descent Citizens Reparations Commission. It is a state reparations commission that was commissioned by Governor Pritzker. I've been on it since for about a year now. It's been going for about 3 years. We actually just started to get our completed draft together on our harms report, and we're working on making recommendations. So that's exciting to get moving on that. And then the last thing I'll say about reparations, my roles, I'm also the regional leader for First Repair. First Repair is a national organization that was founded by Robin Ruth Simmons. Robin Ruth Simmons is a person in Evanston, Illinois, who's a former councilwoman who led the charge there and got reparations started in Evanston, one of the first city that started reparations. So that I'll leave it at that for my introduction. Want to just kind of talk a little bit about why I'm here and why I want to talk about reparations. I know it's a slightly controversial issue, but it shouldn't be, because when it comes down to it, reparations are two main things. One is that when you've been harmed, you would like somebody to apologize for it. And I think the human condition is that we've been harmed. I don't think anybody in this room has not been harmed at some point in time in their lives. And when you are harmed, you want someone to apologize for that harm. That's the main first part of reparations. The second part is compensation. When you are harmed and it's related to needing compensation for it, that's not a new concept either. When I go to Chicago driving the expressway, half the billboards are attorneys saying, "Hey, you been in an accident? Give me a call. If you've been harmed, I get you some money." So again, not a new concept. In essence, that's what reparations are in terms of those two things. Why should African Americans get reparations? As you see in the PowerPoint, there's a laundry list of things. I'm not going to go through everything. I think we are generally familiar with the history of our country in terms of harms done to African Americans over the years, and this past harms and obviously ongoing harms as well. What I really want to highlight is a concept that a lot of us don't think about. The United States is the richest country on the planet, and no one would ever argue that. Well, you know, the United States is the wealthiest nation. We spend $5.3 trillion on healthcare alone. How did that happen, though? The United States is a relatively young country compared to other countries in the world. You know, China, Egypt, they've been around for thousands of years. The United States was around for a few decades and went from 0 on the economic scale to number 2 in just 84 years. How did that happen? Right. And so in 1776, the country was born. By the time the Civil War started, 1860, the United States was the number 2 economy on the planet, only behind Great Britain. Well, a lot of that happened because of the cotton industry and other industries that was built on free labor. The cotton industry was such a moneymaker for the United States that by 1860, 53% of every dollar coming into the United States came from the cotton trade. Because the United States was able to produce, sell, and deliver cotton cheaper than everybody else on the planet, they had a cornerstone on the market. And that cornerstone on the market led to the United States building a financial portfolio, if you will, that laid the foundation for the United States being the wealthiest country in the world. So when we think about all the privileges and all the things that we get out of this country, all the people from all over the world who wants to come to the United States because of opportunity, that opportunity and these things have been here because of the free labor that was done back in the enslaved time period. Almost be like, if Saudi Arabia has 75% of the oil reserves, well, imagine if they had 100% of the oil reserves. That was the United States when it came to the cotton industry. And so there's a lasting legacy of that. And I won't go into a lot of detail because, again, there's a long laundry list of things. But I just want to highlight that in the Mississippi Delta area, where my daughter lives and works on a program for young kids there, there's the only place where in 1860 where we had millionaires. All the millionaires were plantation owners who had a large number of enslaved people. Now that same area is one of the poorest areas in the entire nation, where the average life expectancy for a black male is 60 years old. Reparations has a more defined definition, if you will, in the international scale. These are the 5 components that the international community has said this is what reparations will look like. Includes cessation, which means stopping whatever practices that lead to harm, restitution and repatriation, compensation, satisfaction, and rehabilitation. And again, I won't go into a lot of detail. I don't have a lot of time, but just know that these are internationally accepted terms for what reparations is all about. Along with that, I want to highlight the fact that reparations is not a new concept by any stretch of imagination. Japanese Americans got reparations in the 80s after being subjected to internment camps during World War II. Native Americans have many examples of them getting reparations over the years. Jewish victims of Nazi persecution have gotten reparations even to this day. And then former people, owners of enslaved people got reparations. When Abraham Lincoln outlawed slavery, they gave compensation to the Washington, D.C. Slave owners in that area for their lost property. So not a new concept. Matter of fact, reparations can go back as far as the Bible. In Exodus, there's scripture that talks about when the Israelites were leaving Egypt, how the Lord kind of favored the Israelites and basically had it so that they can go and get all the gold and other things they can get from the Egyptians before they went on their trek to the wilderness. Again, I won't go into the scriptures in more detail here, but there's passages that is translated, even said that the Israelites plundered the Egyptians. That's where they got so much stuff for their 400 years of slavery and was able to get that before they moved on. And I think it's also important for reparations in large part because of the education factor. One of the things that I think that we have issues in our country is that we lack education and we lack how to get good information. And one of the things I just want to highlight really briefly on this is the Medicaid cuts. So if we learn more about how our country operates and some of the racial undertones that we have, I think we wouldn't be facing this issue with all the Medicaid cuts we had recently. Why would Medicaid get cut in the first place? Regular Medicaid, 88% of the money for Medicaid goes towards children, people with disabilities, and the elderly. 88% of dollars. So even though 24% of the beneficiaries are working age adults, they only consume about 12% of the overall dollars. So even if you assume that minorities are taking advantage of a system and not willing to work, and therefore they're relying on Medicaid, the reality is that there are more white people on Medicaid than black people. And then even if you narrow that down, there's only 12% of working age adults that take up 12% of money that takes up the money for working age adults. And the undertone is that people don't want to work. And that's evidenced by the fact that they have a work requirement for Medicaid now. So they're trying to say that these are people not working. Well, unless you want children, people with disabilities, and the elderly to get back out there, or get out there, that's kind of what we're looking at. But again, a lot of that comes from the lack of information and the stereotypes that get perpetuated and not checked. And reparation information deals a lot with that in terms of getting that information out. So I think we need to think differently when it comes to reparations. It's not just this issue of just handing out a check. It can be done in many different ways. Matter of fact, I tell people we're only limited with how we do reparations by our own creativity, right? We have policy and legislative changes that can be made that help with diverse businesses. We do reduce utility costs, hospital discounts. There's all types of ideas. I won't get into all the details, but just know that there's lots and lots of different ways to do reparations. I just want to talk a little bit about our group, our goals. We have a kind of an acronym that we go by, EAR, and lend your ear, education, acknowledgement, and reparations. Again, we want to kind of get away from all the politicization and the polarization of the word reparations, really get down to the heart of the matter. The heart of the matter is that we had not done people right in this country, and we want to do something about that. One quick way I can explain it is if I was a young man 30 years ago and I got arrested and put in jail for a crime I didn't commit, something that has happened to many black men. You could look at the Chicago stories about 100 black men being tortured and forced into confessions and spend many years in prison. So this is a thing that actually happens. So if I spend 30 years of my life in prison wrongfully and I finally get out, well, something should be due to me, right? And now, granted, no matter what the dollar amount is, it can't make up for 30 years of my life. You know, no family, no PhD, no health center I started. None of that stuff happens if I'm sitting in prison as opposed to being free. So there's no amount of money that can make up for it. But I tell people I do want something, right? So even if it's just a token of justice, I want that token of justice. And another thing that's key, it doesn't matter what my plans are, how I'll spend that token of justice either. Although it'll be good and important to spend it well, the point is that it's due to me. It's not charity, it's not a gift, it's not a handout, it's justice, right? And that's what reparations really is all about. So we're all about education, acknowledgement. People ask the question, well, what's the difference between good programming and reparations? It's the acknowledgement. We're really big about being very specific about what the harms are and then trying to address and redress those specific harms, as opposed to just being this generalized, check or something like that. And then the last part is the reparations itself, because without that part, then it's just talk. So again, we're here to educate the community. We tend to host events and we promote reparations. Again, we're trying to get this commission started. And we are grateful that the city of Urbana has already moved forward with this, and we are working with the city of Champaign, and we hope that you'll be a part of it as well. I won't go through some of the details, but just know that we have had experiences here in Champaign County that's relevant to similar things that happen to other communities. Redlining, for example, in Evanston, that's why they got reparations up there, because African Americans were forced to live in a certain part of Evanston, and that was divested in, and therefore they got reparations, they got money for housing, and so on and so forth to make up for that. If you look at this map, you can see concentrations of those red dots. That's where a more relatively recent map of where African Americans in Champaign County, Champaign-Urbana, Riley live right now. And so we've had similar experiences, and if you look at some of those areas, we know those areas also have been divested in. And again, this is just one example. One of the goals of this commission that we're trying to form is to do the research to find out what harms have been done to African Americans in Champaign County. And so that's what the key part of it is. And then also lastly, know that this is not a singular event that we're trying to accomplish here. I go to a yearly symposium where there's 100 cities all across the country that are in various stages of making this happen. Evanston is just one. I had to update my slides, but they're not at $5 million of disbursement, they're up to $7 million disbursement. I just had a meeting yesterday when they updated us on that. I already mentioned the State Commission. Ashford, North Carolina has dedicated $5 million towards reparations. Shelbyville County in Tennessee has dedicated $5 million for reparations. Now, we know that it's all relative too, right? Evanston has money, right? And so we know that, these dollar amounts may not be relevant to Champaign County, but we do want to try to do something that's parallel to that in our own way. There's also still ongoing efforts on the national level, even though I know there's a lot of disagreement on the national level, there are people still moving forward in that. And again, there's places all over the country that are actively doing this. And there's also academic institutions. Georgetown University and Harvard University both dedicated $100 million towards reparations. The Jesuits in the religious community is trying to raise $1 billion towards reparations. So again, this is not a one-time, one-shot type affair by any means. All right, and so I'll wrap up there. If anyone have any questions, again, our goal is to get all the different governmental entities on the commission. It will be, the majority of the group will be African Americans from the community, but representatives from each of our governmental entities to be part of that process as well. Yes.
Does anyone have, Ms. Carter?
Question. I think I remember, but if you can clarify if I'm wrong. You said these funds at a previous meeting would come from the motor fuel tax funds from different municipalities. Is that correct?
No, I don't know how it will come from here specifically. I know in Evanston they had three sources. One was the marijuana tax sales revenue that they got. That's the one. They also got money, another $10 million from real estate tax transfers, some kind of tax that they put on the sale of homes that are worth $1 million or more. Again, Evanston had a lot of money. They have enough $10 million just for that tax, and then their faith community raised another $1 million for reparations as well.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? Stephanie?
Thank you so much. I really appreciated your presentation. I do think one thing that's super important to know is that in the examples where this has worked and that the structure for this has withstood sort of legal challenges and been able to identify people that have been harmed in a way that, that is robust, counties have played an incredibly important role because counties, we sit on that data source. So one of the things that I think this board should think about is some of the digitization projects that we've been working on, and particularly in the recorder's office. That is, I think, going to be a super valuable tool. And I think that the county would need to participate in order for that research piece to be good. And I know a lot of folks here are readers that are on the board. If you want to read a book to really think about the implications of slavery in terms of the American economy, Edward Baptiste's The Half Has Never Been Told is a really accessible book that lays out the economic implications of slavery in the United States, not just in the South. So, but thank you. I really appreciate your presentation.
Thank you. And our website has a treasure trove of resources, information about reparations as well. Thank you for that.
Does anyone else have any questions? Ellie?
So right now, I guess, can you just say a little bit more about what exactly you're hoping to fund, what you're working towards? It's the research part. Is that like step one, I assume?
Correct.
And I guess who all are you hoping to provide funding for that?
Yeah, so our when I first had a vision for this, our goal was to have the City of Urbana, City of Champaign, the Champaign County Board, and UIUC all contribute $25,000 each to have a joint intergovernmental commission. That was our vision from the beginning. And then that money would go towards research, because that's another key component, is really identifying the very specific things that have happened to people over the years. And that's not something that you just pull off a bookshelf. So it does take some digging to do that. So that would be a lot. And there's also public education as well. Matter of fact, I almost forgot, State of Illinois State Commission I mentioned, we're going to have our public hearing here in Champaign on October 4th. We're going to pass around some flyers for that. We've been doing them all over the state, and this is Champaign Urbana's turn, Champaign County's turn to be able to hear from extra speakers and also to give public input about it. It's going to be at Cranard Performing Arts Center, and it's going to be at that Saturday, October 4th from 10 a.m. to about 12:30 p.m.
Emily, she had her hand up first.
Thanks. So this is one of the things I'm most proud of my time on the board is being able to invest in mapping, redlining in this district. I know that the clerk has been a key factor in getting that work done. My question is twofold. Have you been able to use that data? And then also, what next steps could we possibly need from GIS information, like so for mapping, etc.? Can you think of any next steps in that regard?
Yeah, so our first step will have the commission form, and ultimately, while our coalition has been doing some research, it'll be the ultimate responsibility of the commission to actually dig in and get that type of research done. So that would be part of where the resources and the funds would go towards getting that accomplished. Yeah.
Samantha?
Can you tell us again, what does EAR stand for? EAR?
Yeah, education, acknowledgement, and reparations.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? I have a question. So I know you said that you reached out to the city of Urbana and the city of Champaign. Mm-hmm. Have they agreed to donate any funds?
Yes, the City of Urbana has already agreed to dedicate $25,000 toward this effort. I actually connected Matt Rochley, their city attorney, with Nick Cummings, who's the city attorney in Evanston. So they're connected. They're getting the language together to form it. They're setting it up in a way where the City of Urbana will at least start it, right away, but it'll be open to other entities to be able to join on board whenever they're ready and willing.
Okay. Anything from the university?
We've been poking and prodding in various ways of the university. We've talked to Wanda Ward, public engagement. We talked to Sean Garrett before he left. We've been met with some of the faculty. We plan on trying to meet with the faculty in the fall. We have some student groups. So we've got at least one of our students here. So we're trying to just kind of make sure they are aware of us and any way we can have them, associate with what we're trying to do. But we're going to keep pressing there. And of course, they have a lot of pressure with them with what's going on, national level. But we hope to at least have some kind of representation, maybe even it's not official, but have somebody from UIUC sit on that commission as well.
Do you guys have a deadline, or are you going to be able to get started as the funds start rolling in? Or
yeah, the deadline is not, there's really no deadline, but we're probably going to start as soon as we can get the language with the Urbana set up and get it all established and go in there, and hopefully we'll get others on board at that time too.
Emily?
Super briefly, I just want to know, I think the consideration of funding is certainly worth a consideration from this board, but also a joint letter or even a resolution, something supporting involvement from UIC is something that this body would definitely support.
That'd be great. And if someone is open to it, we do have both mayors from both cities that will be doing the welcome at that public hearing October 4th. So if somebody from the county want to join in that welcome, that would be fantastic too.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything else? Okay. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The monthly reports can be found on the department's website throughout the department reports. I don't have any other business or chair's report, and I don't have any items to be designated on the consent agenda. Back to you.
Thank you. Moving on, we have policy, personnel, and appointments. Chair Vantage Thiernan.
Thank you, Chair Locke. We have a monthly HR report. We have some appointments that I will need to. I don't think I'm reading them now because they're just forwarding them. We've got the Owl Creek Drainage District. We have the Blackford Slough Drainage District. We have Kankakee Drainage District. East Lawn Memorial Burial Park. And then all our vacant appointments. I believe do we have the yeah, can I do an omnibus on this for the drainage districts? Thank you. So I am proposing an omnibus for 2A, B, and C under 8.
The omnibus.
Thank you. Can I get a second? Can I give a second from Ms. Greer? All in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to read those. Resolution appointing Wayne Cox to the Owl Creek Drainage District unexpired term ending 8/31/2028. Resolution appointing Valerie Rogers to the Blackford Slough Drainage District unexpired term 8/31/2028. And a resolution appointing Joseph Klein to the Kankakee Drainage District unexpired term ending 8/31/2028. Can I get a motion? We already did, well, we did a motion for omnibus. We need to do a second one. We're good? Yeah? Okay, so we're good. All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. I have D, resolution appointing Chandler Jones to the East Lawn Memorial Burial Park, unexpired term ending 6/30/2028. Can I get a motion? Barney, Lockshin seconds. Discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We have the current vacant appointments on the website.
Comment on vacant appointments.
How many vacant appointments?
No comment.
No comment on vacant appointments?
I have a comment.
Oh, you have a comment on vacant appointment. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I noticed that on the vacant appointments on the website, this is for the county executive, I didn't see the VAC admin or the facilities director listed as a vacancy or an open position.
Oh, sorry. Ms. Friedman?
I can just say about I think the VAC admin that will need to go through the budget process like every other position, new position, and facilities. I don't know if my colleague Steve wants to say something. Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve.
Currently, Ms. Jett is acting in an interim position. We would be looking at posting that position either the very end of this year or early next year.
Go ahead.
Just a thought. So the VAC admin's been vacant for over a year, so it's still not posted. And then number two, the facilities director position description has already been described. I'm curious why it's so difficult to post that position when we already have a budget for it and a clear and complete description of the job requirements.
Can I just note that this list that we're commenting on is just for the appointments for like drainage districts, the Board of Health, and those different types of boards. It's not for county jobs.
Thank you.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
go ahead, Jamala.
Okay. I was with Jeff. I thought we moved on to vacant positions and not vacant jobs. Or I get it. Get what you're saying. So we'll circle back. Because I also have questions about the facility position.
Did you want to bring those up now, or are you going to wait?
I think I'm supposed to wait based on the direction I just received from Megan, right?
I think we'd like direction from you. Is that correct?
We've gone past the monthly HR report, and I believe the questions are about the HR report. So with the chair,
Gotcha.
yeah, we'd have to go. We didn't skip it. You mentioned it, but I think that there were questions about the HR report.
Okay. I'm going to move on to the monthly fee reports, August 2025. Those are posted. I think we can bring the rest of the stuff up under other business, if that's all right.
Actually, I'd like to ask that we go back to the monthly HR report because there was no time allotted for comment.
Sure. Gotcha. All right. Miss Rogers?
It's back to me. Okay. So Steve, I understand that you want to wait to the end of the year, but my question is, how long did it take us to fill the position last time we posted it, and why are we deciding to wait and not start the search now?
The last time we posted the position, I believe the search took approximately 8 weeks, somewhere in that range. At the time that our former facilities director left, we were midway through the move. We're also very cognizant of the need to keep a close eye on facilities project expenses and how we're paying those bills, as a number of them are ARPA funds and need to be funded by the end of the year. I was not comfortable having to wait 2 months to get someone in the position and then have someone that I don't think was familiar with the need for the county to make sure that those funds are expended properly, or really any significant familiarity with the move, which was ongoing at the time. What made sense to me was to have Michelle step in as an interim until the timeline worked better, until we would get closer to the end of the year and make sure that those funds are all passed through to the federal government. We do not want to lose those funds. The move needed to continue, and we are still completing some work at Bennett with our outside contractors. I would really like to get those things closed out. Michelle and I have also talked about some possible changes within facilities in Champaign County in terms of the current operations, and we're having some ongoing discussions about how to move forward with that.
Okay. I guess I just have a comment. I don't understand why we can't post the job, start the interview process, and then tell someone they can start December 1st or January 1st. That would be my preference versus us waiting for 3 months and then posting the job and then having to potentially wait 2 more months without having a facilities director. I guess I understand, and I guess it's not really up to us since you already made the decision and did what you wanted to do, but I just don't support the decision.
Ms. Carr?
So you're going to tell me that the second person in line after the facilities director had no prior knowledge of what's going on within Champaign County to be able to take this position outside of Michelle Jett?
My decision was to have Ms. Jett act as the interim.
Mr. Wilson? Did you want to go, Mr. Cagle?
Notwithstanding an executive decision, it seems two things can be true at once. There's a vacancy and there's a bunch of work. And when a vacancy occurs, given it only took 8 weeks to fill the last one, it just seems like not a wise decision to not even just post the position. Well, that's my opinion. And I think that would have been the more appropriate thing to do, which most organizations, either private or public, when a vacancy occurs, there's already an established budget for that position. A position is opened, a request to fill that position is made, an aggressive search to fill that position occurs so that the gap no longer exists.
Ms. Locke?
I'm going to second Mr. Wilson here, which happens sometimes. But I very much appreciate the explanation that we got about we have all of these facility projects that we're using ARPA funds. There's a timeline, getting someone new up to speed. I appreciate that. And I wish we would have received that notification as a board. I feel like we need to comment on the lack of transparency because even with the best of intentions, in making the decision to keep the decisions in-house, it causes distraction in the community on this board. It causes a lack of confidence in the decisions as they're made. And I wish we would have heard this in an open forum sooner. But with that said, in conversations that I've had, there's an evaluation of the process that's going on that was possibly sorely overdue and that will make for a better facilities department moving forward. So I join Ms. Rogers in hoping that we post it sooner than later, not wait till January and have a new facilities director by March. I hope we do it sooner, but ultimately it is a decision that is up to the executive.
Ms. Hanauer-Friedman, and then Ms. Rodriguez, please.
I believe that the information was shared with us at the facilities committee. I'm sorry if that didn't make it to everybody. And also just, I agree that the position should be posted before or well before, the time that we want to hire for. If the time we want to hire for is January 1, I think it probably makes sense to post it in October, would be my kind of, professional hiring, although I am not a facilities expert in terms of the job market.
Ms. Rodriguez.
As much as I was about to say something catty, but I won't. A couple things that I just want to underline here, right? This was a random loss, right? We had just hired a director of facilities. Also, yes, having an update from the facilities committee would have been great, but also I want to highlight our role is advise and consent. I don't know why we're dying on this hill right now. It's been about 5 minutes. And that'll be the extent of my cattiness.
I'd like to make a point of
Mr. Farney? I'm sorry, what?
I want to move to add an item to the full county board agenda to implement an ordinance that using the personal change.
This is not a point of order.
Well, can I make a motion? I'm sorry, maybe I worded it.
Not during this. We're in discussion.
You can do it in discussion, but Barney hasn't spoken yet. He needs to go first.
Thank you. Mr. Farney? You can go after Mr. Farney's finished.
So my comment first is that right now, this discussion, the board is diving into the internal affairs of an elected official's office. And typically, that's something that we're pretty hands off on. I think I'm okay with it. But we also need to look at every elected official's office, because when we get down to it, what the reason we're talking about this is because we saw a pay requisition increase. This happens in every elected office. And one of the ways that we can fix this, and I've brought this up in the past, is we simply can change the way we budget for salaries. And if we change the way we budget for salaries, and maybe we don't budget a full line. Department heads, elected officials have to come to us in December or January. They're going to be less inclined to give mid-year raises, to change salaries that have been budgeted for in the middle of a year. So maybe we budget salaries at 80%. And everybody has to come to us in December and get an amendment so they can pay everybody at the end of the year. But that's going to stop any pay raises. If that's what we're concerned about, that's how you stop it. Is that a road we want to go down? Well, we're in budget trouble right now, so maybe it is. It'll be really, really ugly. But you know what? Our budget is really, really ugly. So maybe that's what we need to start considering doing. And right now is the time to do it because we're in the budget process.
Ms. Furtado, please. And then Ms. Carter.
I would agree that I think that there is different mechanisms by which we can use our power of the purse to more effectively have conversations with elected officials across the board. I also recognize that there'll be a pretty universal dislike of that plan. I would like to suggest, though, that in this case, your plan would not actually work because the model that the administration is doing is actually saving the county a considerable amount of money. If we hired somebody on day one when the person left, compared to what the person who's doing the role would be getting paid, by my estimations, it's between $30,000 and $40,000. And so, if anything, this would have been a way to eschew having to go to the board in order to ask for more funds rather than to have to go to the board to ask for more funds. So I would also say that in all sorts of cases, both in private and public, people who administer those departments, those businesses make hiring decisions based on all sorts of different timing needs. And that has happened. This is not something that's new to this county. It is only, in my estimation, the first time that I've ever heard the board weigh into this level about the internal operations of another elected official. And if anybody would like to talk, I could tell you all sorts of different ways that other elected officials, how it works is we give them their money for their staff. They have the statutory duties to provide those funds, and then they manage their side of the operation. We, of course, can weigh in, but at the end of the day, that's the way county government is set up. And so while I do agree with Mr. Farney that there is mechanisms by which we could budget differently, you know, we don't have to do this kind of budgeting at all. We could go back to zero-based budgeting if we ever, you know, get our finances in order to do that. And I actually would really like to see something like that. But, you know, we have to know how much money we have before we could do something like that. All that said, that particular remedy that Mr. Farney suggested in this particular case would not have solved anything because they're not spending the full line. And so, I mean, they're actually saving us money.
Ms. Carter.
Can you tell me how many job titles Michelle Jett holds? Does anybody have a record of that? HR.
She's my director of administration, and she's the interim facilities director.
No longer the FOIA officer?
That rolls into her role as director of administration.
Anybody else? All right, we're moving on. As I was saying, county clerks, monthly fee reports. Is there any other business? Ms. Carter.
I would like to move to add an item on the full county board agenda to implement an ordinance that using the personnel change to raise salary for supervisors or department heads require county board approval.
Second.
Ms. Furtado?
That violates Robert's Rules of Order because that item hasn't been noticed.
Mr. Farney?
I think if it went through the committee process, it would be allowed, though. So it could be on the agenda for the October committee of the whole.
Thank you. Can I get a roll call, please?
We haven't even,
I don't think
we're still in discussion.
I don't think we need to even vote on it. I think we need to just say we want to see something like that on the agenda.
We need to convince people to put it on the
So
Thank you.
All right, so where are we at with this?
So we can just add it to October's agenda?
That's not what this is for.
If you would like this body to consider putting something on the agenda as somebody who's suggesting that, you need to convince this body to do so. But you can't just vote on something that's not on an agenda ever. So if you want to make your case, or if you want to, we can, in this body, under business, can give direction about future agendas, but you can't just vote on something that's not on an agenda. That violates Open Meetings Act rules.
So I can bring up a draft before the next meeting and ask the body to move forward with it.
Ms. Law?
Ms. Carter, it would have to go through the Policy, Personnel, and Appointments Committee. And you know from your time as a chair that there is a committee that meets beforehand. So Ms. Vanish-Thierenot is the chair of that, and Mr. Wilson is the vice chair. So I would encourage you to talk with them about getting it on the agenda.
Thank you.
Ms. Lockton?
Sorry, just a brief point of order as we continue discussing things out of recognized speaker order. Please use your microphones. ADA compliance requires that we use microphones so that people who are listening to the feed at home can hear what we're talking about. They can't hear you at all if you don't use your microphone, and that's also why it's important to wait to be recognized. Thank you.
Okay. Item the chair's report, designation of items to be placed on the consent agenda. 2, A, B, C, D, E. Oh, not E. And I believe that is everything.
Thank you. Moving on to finance, Ms. Hannauer Friedman. Chair.
Okay, so we are starting out. We have a presentation from RPC. I believe our two colleagues are here. They're going to be talking about funding status. If you want to come on up. Yeah.
Good evening, County Board members. My name is Delitso Solomoyo. My official title is Chief Executive Officer for the Champaign County Regional Planning Commission. And I'm joined this evening by my colleague, who many of you know, Tammy Ogden, who is our Chief Operating Officer, and we're going to sort of tag team our presentation this evening. I have been the CEO of the Regional Planning Commission. I marked my 8 years this past June. But in total, I've been a chief executive officer for over 25 years. So what I want to do, because there are many new county board members, and I know Tammy did present our FY 2026 budget last August, so many of you are familiar with her, but because unfortunately I wasn't here, what I want to do is just sort of give you a brief background of who the RPC is, how we're funded, and then talk about the federal funding landscape and what we're facing. So the Regional Planning Commission was created on December 1st, 1966. So we'll be celebrating our 60th anniversary next year. It was created through a Champaign County Board of Supervisors resolution. The Regional Planning Commissions in the state of Illinois have their own statutes. These were initially passed into law in 1929, and there's been several amendments since then. But according to is this going in and out? No. According to the county board's creating resolution of the Champaign County Regional Planning Commission, and this is a quote from that resolution, it said that County of Champaign should have a plan for the general purpose of guiding and accomplishing a coordinated, adjusted, and harmonious development of said region, and of public improvements and utilities therein for the purpose of best promoting health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, efficiency, and economy in the process of development and general welfare of the region. So at its creation, the Regional Planning Commission was the planning, zoning, and subdivision agency for Champaign County and for the cities of Champaign and Urbana. And I think at the time, the county, as well as those two cities, did not have the capacity to do their own planning, and that's why there was a need for the Regional Planning Commission to be created. The Regional Planning Commission is a division of Champaign County. So just to be clear, we're not some separate entity. We are a division of Champaign County. We share the same federal employee identification number as the county. As I said earlier, Tammy presented our FY 2026 budget to the county board. We are part of Champaign County's budget, as well as the audit. A little bit of the governance structure of the Regional Planning Commission. So we do have the county. So the county is one of the founding members. We were created by the county, but the county is the founding member of the Regional Planning Commission. And so we have the county executive is a member of our commission. We have two county board members, Mr. Wilson and Chair Locke are also members of our commission. We have the mayor of the city of Champaign and one representative from the city of Champaign. We have the mayor of Urbana and the city council member of Urbana, the mayor of Rantoul, mayor of St. Joe, and then we have two administrators from Savoy and Mahomet, and then two community members that represent the low-income community in Champaign County. Those consist of the members of our board, the governing structure that governs the Regional Planning Commission. So a little bit of what has happened since 1966. Clearly, the organization has experienced a lot of growth and change. We became the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the planning area in 1974. In 1983, we took on police training. This is the East Central Illinois Police Training Project. We do that in three counties, Champaign, Vermilion, and Piatt counties. So we provide ongoing professional development to our police officers in those three counties. In 1984, we became the Community Action Agency. So Community Action, this goes back to when President Lyndon Johnson launched the War on Poverty in 1964. And as a result of that, you have community-based organizations like the Regional Planning Commission that are designated to be the anti-poverty organization within Champaign County. So that happened in 1984. And because of that, the rest of the other programs that we took on that address social and human needs in our community have come to the Regional Planning Commission as a result of us becoming a community action agency in 1984. In 1994, we took on Head Start. Head Start used to be operated by an agency in Danville, East Central Illinois Community Action Agency. They used to operate the program right here in Champaign County, and they gave it up. And because the Regional Planning Commission was a designated community action agency, we were eligible to apply for those resources and to begin to provide early childhood education here in Champaign County. In 2002, we received a grant which we used to establish the GIS Consortium. So that used to be part of RPC before it became separated from the RPC. It was created within the Regional Planning Commission. In 2005, RPC took on LAHEAP and weatherization. Those two programs, so LAHEAP is the Energy Assistance Program. This is where we assist households with utilities. This used to be operated by the Champaign Urban League. Workforce Development in 2011, and then ICERT, which Tammy will talk about some space issues. We acquired that from the university in 2023. Our organizational structure, we have about 9 divisions. Many of those do deal with a lot of the programs that we operate. We are certainly fairly large. So the budget which was presented in August for FY 2026, hopefully things remain the same, $81 million. That's a significant growth from 2017 when I started, which was $26 million. Now the funding, and I apologize if this is repetition from what Tammy presented to you, but 94% of that is federal and state grants, majority of it being federal funding. We have funding that either we receive directly, like Head Start, we get funding directly from the Department of Energy, HUD, but then there's also federal funding that is passed through the state of Illinois. So there's block grants, formula grants that are passed through the state of Illinois and then to the Regional Planning Commission. And then the remaining 6% would be local and private funds. And we are very, very grateful to the county for the resources that we receive to do a lot of the other work, like the Youth Assessment Center, the police training that I talked about. We get support from you, and the fact that the Champaign County is a member of the Regional Planning Commission. So we are very, very grateful. I think in total, the funds that we get from Champaign County is close to $500,000. Now, one thing to explain to you as we get into the federal funding landscape. With grants, so I said $84 million, like, wow, that's a lot of money. But one thing to keep in mind is that with a lot of the grants, we're on a reimbursable basis. In other words, we have to do the work, incur the expenses, and then have to submit to whomever the funding entity is for us to be reimbursed. In order to do that, as an entity or as a division of the county, we have to be able to cash flow our operations. So the good thing, I think, for the county is we don't have to come to the to the county to help us cash flow the operations of the RPC. And from what I'm told by our COO, it's about $2.5 to $3 million a month. And sometimes when we submit for reimbursement, it takes a while for us to get paid. And those of our county board members that are on our commission, when we present our financials, do know we do highlight at least a couple programs where we're waiting, we're in the red because we're waiting to be reimbursed by the state. So it does take that much for us to cash flow the organization. Going to the federal funding landscape, I want to tell you that in my years of working in this field, this is the most stressful it has been, and it's been very stressful for the entire organization. We started off in February with a funding freeze, where it wasn't just us. I mean, I think it affected anybody that does business with the federal government. For a few days, we had no idea what was going to happen. Now, we have been very transparent with our employees, keeping them informed, letting them know what's going on, what are the plans, what else is being done. Fortunately, that funding freeze did not last too long, and we did not have to lay off anybody. We didn't have to interrupt any services to the community. We continue to operate. However, what followed that was the administration's budget, which was released, I believe might have been sometime in April. And some of our critical funds were proposed for elimination. So LIHEAP, which is our utility assistance program, that was zeroed out in the administration's proposed budget. The community services block grant funding, which is actually the funding that it's funding, but the statute that defines us as a community action agency, that funding was also zeroed out. And then weatherization, Head Start was fine in the administration's budget, so not all of our programs were zeroed out. As many of you that may be familiar with the budgeting process at the federal level, or maybe even at the state level, typically the administration's budget is usually dead on arrival because the Congress has to do their job to mark up the budget. And so we have been focused on working with our congressional delegation, not just those that represent the Champaign County, but throughout the country, providing critical information on what these programs do to assist their constituents. And so the good news is Congress did start marking up the budget. As you know, there's about 12 appropriation bills, but it's been a while since Congress has passed all 12 appropriation bills. However, in the last month or so, subcommittees in both the House and the Senate, at least for those programs that I just referenced that were zeroed out in the administration's budget, Congress, both in the House and the Senate, funded those programs fully. Now, we still have a long ways to go because that's at the subcommittee level. Then the full committee has to take it on, vote on it, and then it has to go to the full House and the full Senate. Now, in terms of what we might be facing as far as federal funding is concerned, so Congress is doing their work. I doubt very much, and so do other people, that they will have their work done before September 30th, but I could be wrong. There are 4 scenarios that I think we're looking at. One would be that, okay, they will pass appropriations and everything will be fine. We'll continue to operate come October 1st when the federal fiscal year begins. Or there could be a government shutdown, and we've experienced those before. Fortunately, the last government shutdown, which was about 30-something days, we were still able to access the resources at the federal government, and the states were also able to do the same. So we did not have to shut down operations at the Regional Planning Commission. So there could be a government shutdown. We don't know what that would look like. Or there could be continuing resolutions. There's been talks of either year-long continuing resolutions. Others are pushing for that. Others are pushing for short-term continuing resolutions, which would mean that the government would be funded at last year's levels. And then there are other factors that we're also looking at. One would be impoundment. There are talks about that, as well as I think you've all probably seen pocket rescission that's been done on some of the funds. And so, you know, all of these things we're looking at because, again, most of our programs, no, all of our programs are funded out of domestic discretionary funds. And so those are really the four pathways we're looking at as far as federal funding is concerned. So now I'm sure there'll be questions, but I want to hand it over to my colleague here so she can talk about some of the work we've done in relation to space and other things like that. Thank you so much for your attention.
Good evening. As Delizzo said, we just wanted to take an opportunity to update you on our search for space for our administrative offices, and then I can also give you an update on our search for space for iCert. So in March of 2024, we put together what we called a planning for our future roadmap. And that was essentially a strategic plan to address challenges, solutions, scenarios, and projected impacts of our administrative search for space. Over the last year and a half, we have undertaken several actionable items. One of them was collaborating with state legislators to work with them in changing the legislation that would allow all regional planning commissions in Illinois to own a real property. Prior to that legislation, only joint regional planning commissions of a certain population and location were able to do that. We also engaged bond counsel and worked with the state's attorney's office to determine whether RPC was eligible to issue tax-exempt debt and for the use of purchase and or renovation of a building. The determination of that was, as a department of Champaign County, RPC would not be able to do that on its own, that the county would have to do that on our behalf. The RPC Commission actually changed its bylaws to clarify that if the Regional Planning Commission was ever dissolved, what would happen to its assets, and that they would go to the county after all obligations and liabilities were met. We collaborated with the county to implement a comprehensive fixed asset policy. Prior to that policy, the county was not able to identify where the county board had actually ever approved the depreciation methodology that was being used. And so this was important to us because if RPC ever did own its own facility under its indirect cost rate, it would only be able to charge for depreciation and interest. And so the new policy allowed for buildings to be depreciated between 20 and 40 years, and that would help us in terms of if we were able to acquire a facility and it was, improved, the expected useful life could better match what the depreciation schedule would be. We also secured a $250,000 grant from the state to support the purchase of a facility. I know that's a drop in the bucket, but we'll take any pennies we can get. We participated in discussions with MTD about their future plans for space and talked about the possibility of co-locating with them. We participated with discussions with the county and other partners about future plans for Brookins. We also appealed to the county board in January for support and provided an update regarding our search for a facility. We have worked with two different brokers since I have joined the commission, which will actually be 2 years in 2 days. And we toured 8 buildings, and we conducted facility condition assessments on 2 of those buildings. So While facility ownership would provide the most stability and security for the Regional Planning Commission, unfortunately, as Delizzo has talked about, and you are all aware, we talked about when we were here in August, the uncertainty surrounding the federal appropriation process has caused us to have to temporarily pause that search until we can figure out what that future landscape better looks like. In regards to the search for space for ICERT, ICERT came over to the commission in July of 2023, and it's my understanding that even before it came over to RPC, it was searching for space while it was part of the university. When I joined RPC in September of 2023, that was one of the things that Delizzo tasked me with, is assisting in identifying space for ICERT. Their needs are pretty specific because of their operations. They actually will, once they are able to identify space and get their training props built, we will actually be a regional training center. So this would be very good for the economy in Champaign County because people would be coming here from different states and different parts of Illinois to stay in this community short term while they are training with the ICERT program. So I didn't count how many spaces we've looked at. It's a lot, but unfortunately, negotiations with landlords have either fallen through or the space did not meet the needs of the program. In some instances, the space just needed, significant amount of work, and it wasn't going to be financially feasible for our funder, who is DCEO for that program, to make renovations to the space for ICERT use. That's my high-level summary. I will be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, both of you. This is very timely for a number of reasons. I know we've had recent and upcoming discussions on Brookins and space as well. So I'm just going to start us off. I have two quick questions for you. The $250,000 grant that you mentioned from the state for a new building, can that be repurposed? Could that be used, assuming you stay in Brookins, could that go towards, say, capital improvements at Brookins?
Yes.
Okay. And this may be more for Delizzo, but if the federal government shuts down for longer than 30 days, do you have a sense of how long you can last?
I would say 30 days.
Okay. Any other? Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I will say, though, that part of the guidance that we've received from one of our national organizations is that, for instance, the Department of Health and Human Services, which actually LIHEAP comes out of there, Head Start comes out of there, and several other community services block grant that I talked about comes out of there. We should be able to still access funds, but again, things could change. And as I talked about the funding freeze that happened in February, subsequent to that, there were some challenges in, accessing, being able to draw down funds from the federal government.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? We'll go Rodriguez and then Carter.
So I've already recused myself from voting on any issues regarding the use of the space in Brookins because Dispute Resolution Institute rents from Brookins. But I do have the benefit of seeing who comes in and out of Brookins to access RPC services every single day. Can you talk a little bit about the needs for access that are unique to the clientele for RPC?
Sorry. Well, I think most of our clients do know who we are as the Regional Planning Commission. And while the move by the county out of the building, as the gentleman discussed during the public comment period, has created some confusion for the public, but our clients generally are able to find us.
Thank you. Maybe my students often criticize me whenever I did teach that I would pose a point and like kind of masquerade it as a question. What I mean to say is that people who, yes, leading questions, there we go. People at RPC need to have ADA access to buildings. I mean, and it's Brookings is uniquely positioned to do that as opposed to any other location. I mean, if you compare it to older buildings in our community that would be affordable and have the size for RPC to access, there's no comparison. And for a group of employees who are overworked, likely underpaid, maybe it's nice to be able to skip the step of going to the post office. And you can slide a letter in the mailbox that's across the street from you. And maybe it's also worth our time to contribute to something that allows participants to ride a bus route and hop off and then go immediately across the street and access services. Like that's why this is an attractive space for RPC to set up shop here. And yeah, now I'm going off. Yeah.
Ms. Carter.
How much space would be ideal for the RPC?
Right now, we are leasing about 17,000 square feet. When we were looking for a facility, we were hoping to bring some of our other operations all under one roof. So we were looking for like 25,000 to 30,000 square feet. But we are currently operating what we have in Brookings with 17,000 square feet.
Long term, would you think being at Brookings would be better off or still additionally searching for new space?
So I think just to be clear, the reason why we were searching for space, it was the uncertainty around Brookings. You know, we have a county board that's supportive of RPC. There could be a county board because, there's been turnover that may not be as supportive of RPC. And so we, one of the things that I learned when I first became CEO, someone told me that your job is not just to look at what's in front of you, but what's around the corner. And so we have sort of been looking at, different scenarios because, again, there's been talks about should we sell the building? Should we not, sell the building? And so as a division of the county, we don't want to wait for a decision to be made. And so we started making these efforts just to be able to position ourselves for the future.
Thank you.
And just to follow up and clarify, when you mentioned how much space RPC is using in Brookings, that does not include ICERT?
That's correct.
So with ICERT, you would be using, and I think we discussed this at facilities last week, I think we estimated about 65% of this total space at Brookings. Is that?
I don't recall the percentage. I think off the top of my head, it was 34,000 square feet.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. Two quick questions. Yeah, two. How many RPCs are there in the state?
Probably about 17, but we don't cover every county in the state.
There's only 102 counties. I mean, so how are the other 16 RPCs, what are they doing for space allocation?
So actually, when we approached our two legislators, Senator Faraci and Representative Emmons, on the legislation to allow regional planning commissions to own space or to own buildings, we actually did present this idea to the association that represents the regional planning commissions in Illinois. and we had unanimous support because they saw that as a challenge for them as well locally. So they really fully supported the legislation passing. But I don't have direct knowledge of how each RPC is handling space. Some of them may be housed within a county. I'm not sure.
Any other questions? See none. Thank you so much for sticking with us and sharing all that information.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, moving on. Can I get a motion for resolution authorizing the application and, if awarded, the acceptance of the Nutrition and Healthy Eating for Head Start Children and Families grant? So moved Carter, second Lakshin. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes, or resolution passes. Okay, budget amendment. First, we have the budget amendment report. That's information only, so you can see where our deficit is heading. Next, we have Budget Amendment BUA 2025-8-260, Fund 2104, Early Childhood Fund, Department 104, Early Childhood Development, increased appropriations $7,800, increased revenue $7,800, reason appropriation of one-time funding to fulfill operations of Foundations for Lifelong Learning from the Women United Literacy Grant from the United Way of Champaign County. Can I get a motion? Vanish Thierenthal, second. Thorsland. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Budget Amendment BUA 2025-8-427, Fund 2075, Regional Planning Commission, Department 100, Regional Planning Commission, increased appropriations $175,000, increased revenue $175,000. Reason appropriation of Homeless and Housing Innovations Phase 2 grant funding to operate a winter emergency overflow shelter for homeless households with minor children. Can I get a motion? Locke, second Sullard. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Budget Amendment BUA 2025-8-530, Fund 1080, General Corporate, Department 036, Public Defender, increased appropriations $18,000, increased revenue $0. Reason additional funds required to satisfy outstanding and future obligations for expert witnesses in FY 2025. Can I get a motion? Carter, second. Greer. Any discussion? I see we do have our public defender here. Any questions?
I'd like to explain if you guys don't have any questions, because this is my first time coming to you for a budget amendment for money that is outside of my budget, I believe, in the 3 years that I've been here. Basically, we got surprised by a very large bill for an expert witness that was unexpected. It was for a murder trial. It was a crime scene reconstruction and ballistics expert. And when we had the preliminary conversations, when we hire experts, we say, what's your hourly rate? What's the estimated amount of hours that you think you're going to work on this case? We're broke, please don't overspend. And then we get a bill. And that bill came as a massive surprise. It was more than we had anticipated. It was in excess of what we had budgeted for. And then I still had to have the guy come here and testify. So this money, which I appreciate there not being any questions, but I just do want to let you know that I am not frivolously wasting the county's money. This is money that was very unexpected based on a bill that was excessive, and I don't plan on hiring any additional experts until whether or not we get FY26 money or that grant comes through.
Any questions? Yeah, Carter.
And I would like to thank you for being mindful of your spending. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
I do have a question. Is there anywhere else in your budget that you can pull from?
We already did. We took money out of our AOIC PD fund grant, which had been allocated for training, and we have spent that to cover some of the other costs that I did not come to you for.
Any other questions or discussion? Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Pollock. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Page turn. Budget Amendment BUA 2025-8-121, Fund 6476, Self-Funded Insurance, Department 119, Workers' Compensation Insurance, increased appropriations 7,675, increased revenue 0. Reason, appropriation of funds to cover actuarial study that is performed every other year. Can I get a motion? Vanish here in that. Barney. Any discussion? Seen. Oh,
if this is performed every other year, why wasn't it budgeted?
I think Travis can address that question.
There's two actuarial studies that are done, one on the even years, one on the odd years, and they have different prices in the contract. And being my first year here last year, I just screwed up and got the wrong price for the wrong year in the budget. So it will pull from fund balance, which it would have if it was budgeted anyway, from the special revenue fund, which has plenty of money in the fund balance.
Okay. And we've got plans now. We've got that straightened out for future.
Yeah, 26 will go back to the lower amount study, and then 27 will be back up to this higher one.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Carter.
That wasn't some information that Michelle Jackson has shared with you to be able to make sure that it was budgeted, is the question that I'm asking.
No, I was not aware of the specific costs of the two different actuarial studies.
Any other discussion or questions? Seeing none, can I get a motion?
Coming from you, that's right.
Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Unfortunately, we only have auditor reports updated through April of 2025. Those are available online. Treasurer reports are updated through August. Next, we have resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement relating to the payment of claims from the Presence versus Champaign County Board of Review. Can I get a motion? Mr. Sullard and Locke, any discussion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. I don't see consent agenda. Should I just, this is all under finance? Okay,
This is
sorry.
also
I was like,
you still get to change this part.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. So next we have our audit update from Travis. That's in your packet. Are there any questions for Travis on the audit update? He's going to present to us in a minute on something else, but okay. Yeah, Mr. Wilson.
Since we've had Travis stay here all evening, so any surprises so far in the audit update? Any things that you've learned new so far?
The biggest thing is starting early and not getting it so far behind, because that's a mess to catch up.
Okay, so moving on to budget direction to administration. This is our budget discussion, and Travis is going to kick it off with a brief presentation to provide some important context. Thank you.
Megan, is there anything I need to do to get it up on the screen? Thank you. So this will be very quick. A couple last week or 2 weeks ago, you guys already heard me talk enough about the budget, but none of this is really new. There's some slightly updated numbers, but it's all stuff that we've talked about before. So this first slide is just kind of a breakdown of where we are, revenue and expenditures for projected for 25, budgeted for 26, and our fund balance to expenditure ratio. During the legislative budget hearings, I had mentioned that the estimated ratio was in the 16 percentages at that time. The difference now is just we've been working with the health insurance negotiations, and I've updated with the latest estimates for those, which are still astronomically high, but less than what was budgeted. And then just some additional notes from things that I'm working on these calculations. The FY24 audit is still in progress, so revenues, expenditures, end of year fund balances still could change for 24, which would affect all the calculations. 25 interest bookings are behind, so those numbers for 25 and 26 could change. They're budgeted and projected on historical estimates, but as we get 9 months worth of data for 25, those estimates could change. In FY25, the county should have some salary savings. Every year we do. We budget for it, but sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less than what we budget for. And then we're still negotiating health insurance plans for FY26. But the chart or table included the most recent estimates that we have. You can notice in the table the fund balances have dropped significantly since 24. Some of the big factors to that are the payments for the hospital settlements were finalized in FY25. The opioid funds, there was a new fund created for that, so the fund balance was moved out of the general fund into the opioid fund. We've talked about this multiple times. There have already been over $2 million in BUAs approved for 25. And then another note is in FY25, $2 million was budgeted to come out of public safety sales tax for CARF transfers that would have normally been transferred out of the general fund. So the numbers could be $2 million worse if we hadn't used public safety sales tax funds for that. So next is the same thing basically, except it includes $500,000 in a guesstimate for salary savings or additional revenue that didn't get factored into the budget or the projections for 25 because they're unknown. So as you can see, by adding that $500,000, it increases the fund balance ratio to 18.7%, which is above policy, but below our goal of 25%. Some things to talk about on the unrestricted fund balance expense ratio is it's dropping pretty quick. FY24, it was about 27.7%. FY25 is projected to drop down to just over 22%. And that includes the $2 million CARF transfer from public safety sales tax. If revenue and expenditures continue at a similar pace, the ratio will be under policy, which is 16.7% in FY27, and the fund balance will be depleted by FY32. Doing another $2 million CARF transfer from public safety sales tax on behalf of the general fund in FY26 could help to keep the ratio flat from the projected 25 number, but then it would eat into the public safety sales tax fund balance, and we only have so many times we can do that. And then this bottom bullet point, this was calculated back before I changed the tables to include the $500,000 potential savings and the new estimate for health insurance because things are changing every day. So those numbers are accurate based on not including those items, but if you include those two items, it actually would be if the $2 million public safety sales tax was used, we would only probably need to do a 0.5% or 1% cut to get back up to 25%. And and also we could what we would need to cut in order to reduce the deficit, the $1.7 million deficit to zero would be about a 3% cut. Roughly every percentage is just over $500,000 based on the expenses. So it'd be right around 3%. Things that we need to talk about today are anything you want to talk about for me to prepare on the budget request for the September 30th special board meeting. And then for the current projected unrestricted fund balance, we have multiple ways to go about this. We could wait one more year and do a wait and see method. We could look at what potential cuts would look like if we ask departments for cuts, or we could reduce the public safety sales tax fund balance to help the general fund with CARF transfers again, just like last year, or we could do a combination of any of those. And then, not for tonight's discussion, but something we need to talk about in the near future is what to do about the structural deficit. Topics are revenue increases or reductions in expenses and services. Most of those would have to come from personnel, being that's the biggest expense in the general fund by far. Other things are budget philosophy changes. JJ had mentioned something about that earlier in this meeting. Eventually, we could talk about what zero-based budgeting could look like, how that would work. And I'm sure there's a lot of different options we could talk about, or at least maybe not a lot, but a few different options. So that's kind of where we are. I'll stop talking now and then let you guys.
Thank you, Travis. Just stay near a mic so we can ask you questions. So for our discussion tonight, hopefully my email was helpful for everyone to kind of start thinking about this from last week. I want us to really focus on Travis's first point, right? We need to figure out what we're doing with our fiscal year 26 budget. And so in thinking, during the hearings, we received a packet full of requests, right, from various departments. So we have those individual requests to talk about. We also have the broader question of, do we want to ask all departments to consider a 1%, a 3% cut to their budgets, and what would that look like? So I would suggest that we start with the individual requests that we received. And, again, given the financial situation that we're in, if you would like to advocate for one of these, I would hope that you would have some thoughts on where that money would come from. Obviously, we can give direction to department heads and say, okay, you wanted this extra person. We would like to see that happen for you, but we don't have the money. So can you give us a revised budget by September 30th that shows where you would take that money from if this is a priority for your department? So I can just go through in the order that we received them. If we want to start with the coroner's request, is there anyone who would like to discuss that request in particular or that department's budget? Ms. Lockshin.
Well, there were a couple of different requests that the coroner had. Specifically, I was looking at the autopsy assistant position. I know that the coroner expressed to us that it would be easier to find a forensic pathologist if we had that position in place. I went back and looked at some past budgets from the coroner's office and made myself some notes here looking at 2023 when we had a pathologist full-time. We made $107,947 in income from services provided. In 2022, it was $90,777. And then in her notes here, she states that the cost has increased from $850 to $1950 in current dollars for providing those services. I was trying to kind of extrapolate like what we would make as a county if we had someone providing those services, knowing that, you know, there are still other counties that people go to. We wouldn't necessarily pick up all of the business, but we would certainly have some money coming in. Just like when I raised the 2023 number to the 129% increase that she forecast for the cost of services, it would have been $247,178. I don't know if this is just my math, but I feel like there's a potential for not only cost savings for us, but also income coming from the coroner's office if we are able to get a pathologist. So that's why I'm like trying to find ways to cut. One thing I was looking at was all the that's more of a department-wide thing, so I don't know if I would bring that up now, but that was just my thoughts on the specifically autopsy assistant position.
A point of order, really quick, Allie. Can you distinguish what should be discussed in this meeting versus the special meeting on this topic?
So right now we want to come up with our requests to admin and department heads in terms of what we'd like to see as proposed revisions to the budget. So we're not voting, we're not making decisions, but this is our opportunity to say, okay, coroner or department head X, we'd like you to come back with a 3% cut to your budget, or we'd like to see if there's a different way to fund the position that you proposed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other on the coroner? Ms. Carter, and then I think Farney.
You just said that we were suggesting where cuts should be. Is that the time to do so now?
Specific to the coroner's requests.
Okay. I just want to suggest that we chop from the top when we look and while we're looking at budget cuts, and that is to begin with the executive's office. So that's my little 2 cents I would like to put in there. Thank you.
Mr. Farney?
I was just going to suggest maybe a better way to look at this is if individuals here on the board have specific positions, because there are some positions in this packet we're just not going to, and I don't know why we would want to go through the whole packet again. So my suggestion would be, if there is something in this packet of budget requests that you want, that's what Ellie needs to know right now, so we can direct administration to put that in the budget and see, okay, how much more does this put us out of deficit? That's the first thing we need to see is, does this board want those specific things? So rather than going through the whole packet, I think if there are spots in here that people think, I'd really like to see it, that's what we need to hear right now.
Yeah, and sorry, that's what I was trying to get at. I was just gonna kind of go through them, but we can just say, if you would like to advocate for one of these, please raise your hand now. Ms. Furtado.
So I will unfortunately not be able to be at the special finance meeting in September because I will be out of town for work. So I would like to advocate for the Chief Deputy Collector position that was proposed by the treasurer. I think we've all seen what it looks like when the treasurer's office is not working at capacity. It is. The reports are up to date. The office is moving along. Specifically, I would suggest that we fund it. The county board has an allocation of $130 for the county administrator that we have not used since we've gone to an executive office. What the board has done is we've taken that money and put it to projects within the county that we've needed. So for example, when we transitioned away from the nursing home, the 2 staff members that we had that oversaw that transition were funded out of that fund. A lot of the Munis implementation has come from that fund. Currently, right now, $10,000 of that fund, of the $130,000, is allocated towards the wrapping up of that Munis allocation, and an additional 57 and change is how part of how we're funding our grant person. That would give us 63,480, which is not currently in your budget, but if you're looking for this, it's on page 88. It's the 1080-010 fund. It's the county board fund. So I suggest we zero out that fund, which would be $63,480, to give that to the treasurer in order to continue to have that position until which time his budget would allow for him to move it. The staffing position for that is $70,000. That puts us 7,000 and change short. I would suggest the other additional money to get us to the 70 come from his, I think he should have a little bit of skin in the game. His contractual services, his 1080-026-502-001 fund is budgeted at 10, is budgeted at, I can't remember, whatever it's budgeted at, $37,000. I inquired into how much of that goes for recurring costs on contractual services. If we budgeted the additional $6,520 to get to the base salary, that would still give him between $5,000 and $8,000 in unallocated recurring money within his contractual services. And I think that would be enough to allow him to have some flexibility in case something else came up. I have not identified funds for the benefits in IMRF, which is $22,356. I do think he would have a limited amount of capacity in his temporary staff services to allocate for some of that, which is his, you could look it up, the 1080-026-500-105 fund. But I also think that's a small enough amount of money that we could absorb that, and the benefit to the county is such that not having a treasurer's office throws everything that is operating well, throws everything. I think he had a clear articulation of the need for that service. I think it is well within the priorities of the county board to fund it. And I could, if you want me to keep looking, I'm sure I could find the money for the IMRF and bonuses and line item it out. Obviously, if you all think that there's better funds for these funds to come from, I'm fine with that. I'm not wedded to these funds. I do think at least a portion of it should come from the treasurer's office. And I think he has the capacity to do so since he has been paying that person as a contractual person from his office. But I did take you seriously that I shouldn't come to something and propose something if I didn't have a suggestion for funding. So this is my suggesting for how to fund it. And again, I won't be here, so thank you for allowing me to advocate it for it a little bit more vehemently than I would have in this meeting, since I won't be at the next one, which will probably save you like an hour, me not being at that one. And I'll send all that to you in an email, so you just don't have to memorize it.
I just wanted to point out, Mr. Pugh has had his hand raised this whole time.
I'm sorry, Mr. Pugh.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just gonna actually go along with Jenny here for the sorry, I can't remember the position's name. Autopsy assistant. Excuse me, get some water. I did talk to the coroner a lot, and from the conversations with her, the fees are going up. We're going to have to keep paying more and more every year for these autopsies. The thing is, the fees we can charge are going up even faster. So the numbers I got from her, it sounded like that we actually, with the fees we would normally get from our county and from actually bringing other counties to work, it would not only pay for the pathologist, it would also pay for the autopsy assistant. Now, there actually is a small boost we can get from that too. On the opioid settlement task force, we gave them a toxicology tester machine, which when they come over to do their autopsies, they can actually do the toxicology test at the same time too. And we can charge $150, $200 per test every time they come over, and they'll do that because it saves them 6 to 8 weeks of sending it off to a lab. So these are things that we can make money off and revenue off of pretty much within a year. We don't have that anywhere else in our budget where we actually could make revenue that I've seen. So I just want to push that again.
Ms. Lockshin.
Oh, I didn't, once you clarified what we were doing with our time, I kind of wanted to add on. I also took a look at opioid settlement money. Wasn't sure if any other money from that could go to funding positions or anything else in the office to offset the cost of the assistant. But also I was taking a look at all of the travel and training money that we have allocated for different departments. I know some of that is statutorily required training, things like the sheriff's office where there's training ongoing all the time for new employees. But there's some in there that I'm like, the county board, we have what, 9,000 for travel and another 2,000 for travel. 9,000 for travel, 2,000 for conferences and training. That's when normally somebody would go to, say, the national conference for county associations or things like that. We're not using that annually. We're probably not going to use it next year, knowing that we're in a budget crunch. I feel like we need to take a closer look at the different departments, and I did not have time. I made a list of all the ones I would want to look at. I did not have time to follow up on this because my list is extensive. But I am curious about the different travel and training budgets, which ones are required by statute, which ones are simply for enrichment, may not be required annually, that sort of thing. And I think we could get a chunk of change back that way.
Just to clarify then, I guess the two of you who have spoken about the coroner, would the request to the coroner then be to submit a budget that shows how revenue would fund the autopsy assistant and also to admin, or we can think about travel across the board. That's not just the coroner's travel. Yeah.
I don't know that that's a realistic ask of the coroner because this is step A of obtaining a pathologist, and you can't hire the autopsy tech and suddenly be rolling in it, right? This is just step A. You have to have this to attract one of these 800 licensed people in the country. So I think it would just be, we find a way to fund it, or we just increase her budget this way and hope, or when we get to the portion tonight where we talk about cuts, we, exempt or whatever. But I think that asking her to submit a budget that, shows how it'll pay for itself at this point is just putting the cart miles ahead of the horse.
So then we don't have any specific ask for that department head. I just want to, Mr. Pugh.
I don't so much, but when in conversations with her, this person can actually do a lot of the work that a deputy coroner could do. And so that actually will help reduce her when she has to have temporary employees come in.
So then how would you propose that we fund this?
That I don't know. Sorry. This is a conversation I've had in the last 4 days. I'm still trying to work through that. I have found some money somewhere else, but not here. Sorry.
Ms. Vanish, there or not?
Would the opioid task force money possibly be able to go towards funding a autopsy assistant?
Yeah, I want to speak to that as chair of that, and I want to echo fellow opioid task member. It's not a piggy bank, but also it's damages incurred for a harm, and we are obligated by the settlement to spend it only on opioid related asks. Only on the reason we were able to buy the CPR machines for Broadlands Longview was because 65-year-olds doing CPR on an OD will likely need somebody to do CPR on them, but because it's potentially overdose related. But we've gotten guidance from our attorneys that we really do need to limit it to opioid related things, and most of the deaths that are investigated by the coroner's office are not opioid related.
So just another point to keep in mind here, I think compared to last year, we don't have very many one-time expenses that we're looking at. Almost all of these requests are recurring. They're almost all personnel or services for things like expert witnesses that you need on a recurring basis. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the only one-time expense we're looking at is a dog.
There's a recurring $500 or so a year.
Right. So when thinking about ways to pay for recurring expenses, we need to think about things that recur. Put it that way. Chair Locke.
I'd like to advocate for, I appreciate the sheriff's very detailed breakdown of overtime costs that he gave us. And his breakdown of the overtime cost makes me not want to advocate for more sheriff's deputies, because even one would cost more than we're spending in overtime. So we'll talk about that later. But for correctional officers, we all remember what happens when we don't have enough places or enough people to maintain a correctional facility. We now have the space, but in the event of 3 people resigning, we don't have the personnel to handle long-term maintenance of the jail. And the current rate to house someone out of county is $80 per day per person, and that becomes a lot. And in this breakdown that the sheriff had provided us of how much we're spending in overtime, it doesn't matter that we're only budgeting it at $173,441, and we're doing this every year. We're paying more. We're paying years ago or in the 3 years of construction, we were paying $419,946, $332,470, $328,106. So we're paying a lot of money in overtime, even when it wasn't fully filled, fully staffed. This year, the overtime at the jail is expected to be $587.99. We can't say no to the overtime if that's what we have to do, because we have to fully staff it. We have to pay people. But correctional officers are very easy and cheap, very cheap to train. They're very cheap to train. So the cost of adding one this year is $87,151. Next year would be $79,651. Following year, if we add 2, it's $174 this year. Add 3, it's $261,453. If we would add all 4 of the requested correctionals officers, it would be $348,604 this year in addition. But if we look at the budget, if we look at how much is expected to be spent on overtime this year, he's expecting $580,799. And of that, $375,879 is call off. So we could fund 4 new people for less than we're paying in overtime for when somebody's sick, when somebody goes on medical leave, when somebody has a child and gets maternity or paternity leave, which is something we need to think about. We need to think about how are we going to adequately staff the place and pay for it. We're either going to be paying, like the sheriff said, and he's right when he said it, we're either going to be paying the overtime, or we can pay for some more people and give breathing room so we don't burn them out, so that there's not mass layoffs. So I didn't identify a new line. I'm just identifying we're either going to pay for it one way or pay for it the other. But I would advocate for all 4 additional correctional officers, but I'm one person. The more the merrier.
Yeah, and just to make sure everyone, if you didn't get a chance, I think we just got the email this afternoon, but we have the memo in orange from the sheriff, and he essentially outlines for us how we could fund positions for the same amount or less than we're already mandated to pay in overtime. Ms. Furtado?
Yeah, I concur. I supported that we needed 2 new sheriff officers in order to get us to like what we should have, but we didn't pass that tax, and what he's paying in overtime isn't enough to fund it. So that's an unfortunate situation, but it is what it is. I would support, since I'm not going to be here next week, I would support A, 1 or 2, because I do think it is just even if we did this with all 4 people, we would still have callback, holdover, OT. It would not zero it out. And so given that this facility is newly operational, and last year, I understand that there's more capacity and things like that, but like last year, 2 people would have been more than, than the savings would be. So I would say I think we should do it in increments and not all at once. If we are going to do this, I could see maybe doing one and then seeing what that impact is on holdover callback, and then maybe doing another one instead of doing all four at once. If we had a more incremental approach, I'd be supportive of that.
Ms. Jett, did you have something to add on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I don't think the department heads or the elected officials were aware that this was the type of conversation that was going to happen tonight. And I think they have a right to be here and be able to engage with you in this kind of conversation about their very specific requests. Normally, this is the conversation that happens at the special committee meeting. So, it's your meeting, do what you want. But I just think it might be better if we put that piece of the conversation onto the September 30th meeting. And today you could give us the instruction of, do you want to tell the department heads to draft budgets that have cuts? And if you have specific things that you're trying to fund, I would encourage you to go meet with those department heads and work with them to figure out where they could help to put some money into what they're asking for. But I think they have a right to be a part of a detailed conversation like this about their asks. And I don't think that they were aware that that was going to potentially be happening tonight.
That does make sense. Mr. Pugh.
I was going to add to that anyways. I was just going to say 3 because that still does give us a large amount of money for any possible overtime that may happen in the future. It would still probably be covered. I asked some people about it and they looked into it and they said, yeah, that probably would be more than enough for any incidental overtime that would still happen with just 3.
Okay. Unless there's any objections, why don't we move then to the more general? Mr. Varney, I'm sorry.
Yep, my comment is more general. I would like to see department heads come up with a budget that includes a 3% cut.
Any discussion on that? Mr. Thorsland.
Yeah, I was going to try to be general, and I know we're not supposed to talk about revenue, but we can talk about things that would save us money like revenue. So I would really like, I agree with Mr. Farney. I think we should get the department heads to come back to us with what a 3% would look like. As much as I'd like to get some new hires, I think we have to only get hires that have the potential to generate revenue. We have an example with the coroner's assistant, but as Chair said, that's not a guarantee that a pathologist is going to fall out of the ceiling and be ready to go. Not in the new building anyway, maybe at the old one. And the treasurer's position. But I think we should ask the department heads for a 3%, and I think we need to think about not a hiring freeze, but only replacing people that leave and not new positions. Every new position of a person is all the way down the line until Travis is talking about it and he has gray hair. And we don't want to do that to Travis.
Just a quick follow-up on the proposed 3%. That would align with the calculations that Travis shared to get us out of deficit. We're looking at a $1.7 million deficit moving into fiscal year 26. So if you look at it as 1% is about 530,000, then we'd need to cut about 3% to get out of deficit. Mr. Pugh, Mr. Kegel, I really can't see well from this position.
No worries. The 3% cut, just a quick question for Travis. That is with the $2 million of public safety sales tax or without?
No, the 3% would just erase the deficit in the general fund. That does not, you would not also add the 2 million from the public safety sales tax.
Spredato.
Just 2 things. Just so how we've done this in the past is, and I do agree that this conversation is maybe a little bit more robust than it usually is. At this meeting, we usually then say at that special meeting, these are the things we want to hear. And that means then if we don't forward them, we're not giving those elected officials false hope that we're going to consider them. So just to be clear, so far, The only ones that we've considered are the autopsy assistant, the treasurer, chief, deputy collector, and potential and correction officers based out of overtime savings. So then what we're saying is all the other positions, we are telling staff, don't waste your time on them because we don't want to hear about it. And we're telling those elected officials we're good. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. And I would support the 3% cuts. I do want to mention that if we continued, when I first got on this board, every year the fund balance would get so low that we had to borrow money from public safety sales tax to pay payroll until our property taxes came in. And we would just tell the treasurer, we would have to give the treasurer the ability to do that. And then they'd have to send us an email if they did it. And when we finally got revenue in, that's how tight we were. We couldn't make payroll. So I do really worry about, if we continue to slide down this path and we use public safety sales tax to make up the difference, then we can't, the cuts would be even more drastic because there would come a point where we literally couldn't make payroll. Public safety sales tax in the past propped up the general fund. So I do want us to make sure that we're thinking about those two things. So I do think proposing a budget that doesn't take another $2 million is the way to go. And at least see what that looks like. And once we have a landscape of how drastic and devastating that is, then we can make other decisions. But I do think that that's the fiscally responsible thing to do.
So at this point, are there any other specific positions that people want to make sure we talk about on the 30th? Ms. Rogers.
I would just like to talk about the PREA coordinator that Shannon requested because it's reimbursed and we just have to come up with fringe benefits. But we can talk about it on the 30th. So that's one I would like to add to the list.
Was there someone who hasn't talked yet? Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. So the Veterans Assistance Commission Board approved the assistant. So for administrative assistant. So that didn't get baked into the 26 budget. Also, the Veterans Assistance Commission approved a $6 an hour raise for the superintendent, and I didn't see that baked into the budget either. Even after, way I understand, there's been some repeated communications to finance that was such a thing. So we obviously need to talk about that on the 30th.
Anything else? Mr. Pugh.
Yes. We didn't include it in the packet, but I was trying to find out more about the state's attorney moving her people to a different classification, if that's actually going to cost us money or not. Can we direct her more to give more information on that?
That was PD.
Oh, was it PD? Well, no, that was state's attorneys, yeah.
It was both, and it will definitely cost us more money.
Can we at least see the numbers for that, please? Classification?
I'm not sure whether that would fall under this process.
Good.
I don't think so, Chair Locke.
Yeah, I would, that didn't come in as part of the budget and the budget request going forward. I mean, there's plenty of PD outstanding requests that no one's speaking to right now, but that specifically didn't come through. And I believe, did we tabled that to October? October? Yeah. So we'll discuss it again next month.
Travis.
I just kind of want to bring up an idea up to you guys, but being September 30th is coming up really quick and the packet would be due, in a week and a half. That'd be a quick turnaround for department heads to identify 3% worth of cuts. I can just make a 3% cut line on each budget so we have numbers and give department heads a little bit more time to identify specifically what they would be if we went that route. I mean, they should start it now, but that'd be a, quick time to come up with drastic measures for their department when I can just estimate what a 3% cut for each department would be.
I guess the question is, though, for those departments that have requested new positions, if we want to ask them to specifically say, where would you pull those funds from within your budget if need be? Ms. Fortato.
I think that, like, so for example, in the treasurer's office, and my guess is also with the PREA coordinator, they would not be able to make up that difference. Their budgets are so tight. So if you are a board member who wants those things, go find it.
So along those lines,
And I support the PREA coordinator too, and I think that's findable. I'd be glad to help find it.
yeah. Along those lines, I also support the PREA coordinator and the treasurer position, and possibly the autopsy assistant. And one thing, and maybe this is getting too in the weeds for tonight, and maybe you'll all hate me, but one thing that we could very easily cut as a recurring cost is our own salary. We can't statutorily per diem.
Can't change it in the middle of a term. You can't
What
change
is the
elected
law?
official salaries in the middle of a term.
There is an election coming up.
In 2026.
Six. So planning ahead.
Wait, the primaries don't count as an election?
I think the soonest you could make any type of adjustments would be next summer, that would go into effect in December of 2026.
Okay, so a year out. Sfordato.
Given, I do agree with Travis. If we just ask everybody to cut 3% by the end of this month, they, are going to faint on the floor. And given how long the cows are in general and the budget process, I would maybe suggest that we start thinking about now and thinking like as we get into October and we're considering the budget, the study session that's on the books that we have not used very many study sessions this year, that we might need to bring that study session in with a specific goal of talking more robustly about the cuts. I mean, I know you have to propose a budget in October and then it's on the books and then we vote for it on November, but usually it's that budget is proposed and then we don't really think about it that much and then we just vote on it in November. It's more of like a public comment period. But I think given the landscape of what we're talking about and the seriousness of it, we might want to all pencil in that October meeting, the study session, because I think it's going to take a little bit more conversation.
Let's go. Vantage through not Wilson Pugh.
Thank you. As nobody has given you a concrete go ahead, I would like to see at least have the number for the 3% cut for departments to look at and just keep in mind. I'm not expecting them to do anything with it. I'm expecting it to just kind of be that lovely little sort of Damocles dangling over your head when you're asking for more money, that, if you want something, you need to figure out a way to pay for it. Whether or not it's going to be a revenue generating position, whether or not you're going to get grants, whether or not you're going to cut something else in the budget, rob a bank. I don't know what you're going to do, but you got to come up with a way to pay for it because we don't have cash.
Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. So what's the projected savings at the end of the year if we don't fill all the positions that we had slated to fill?
I believe that Travis spoke to that in his presentation. He estimated about $500,000 of either salary. Travis is right there.
Sorry, I blinked for a second. It's a little bit more than that. We budget for, because we know there's going to be some salary savings. The estimate based on my most recent calculation from the most recent payroll is after that you take the savings minus what I've already budgeted for, about 325,000, but that's a very rough estimate. And also at the end of the year, you know, who knows what ideas the elected officials have to spend that money. So even if that all's there, doesn't mean it's all coming back to the fund balance.
So follow up on that then. Maybe this is unappealing thought. I think in the HR report, it would say over $2 million would be saved if all those positions aren't filled, or is that just a bogus number?
It's just to give you an estimate, but it's based on like if that position was unfilled for an entire year. It's just to give you a frame of reference of how much labor we're losing by having the vacancies. It's not a like we're getting $2 million back number.
So it's just a useless number, what you just said. I mean, 300,000 is a lot less than $2 million, right?
You're
Maybe
talking
I'm
about a
probably
topic that is very
misunderstanding.
fluid and it changes constantly. Every day we have people in and out of the county. So there's no way for us to give you a dollar amount in the middle of year of how much you're going to save. That number was on the report just to show, again, if all those positions were vacant for a year, that's how much labor we would be losing as a county.
Mr. Pugh.
Thanks. Yeah, I would like to see the 1% cuts if we had to move the $2 million also. So thank you.
Mr. Cagle.
Piggybacking a little bit on Jeff's point, the numbers, the $2.9 million that we see in here, while I understand is fluid, there's vacancies from 2023 and 2022 and 2 positions intentionally left vacant. I would like to see those just eliminated and perhaps even some sort of plan to, if your position's been, if you've been vacant for more than 6 months, some sort of justification as to why that position should still continue to exist. We haven't seen significant reduction in services. Why are we keeping it on our books as an open position and a liability?
So what is the ask on this then exactly?
Cut all of the vacancies from 2024 and before. Eliminate those positions.
Sfordato.
Can I fine tune that a little bit? Could you give us a dollar amount of what it would look like if those positions were cut, and then maybe a little bit of a broader understanding of, you know, I do think if one of those positions is under an elected official's shop, they should have a chance to advocate. There might be a reason that we're not, no, you know what I mean? There might be reasons. The other thing I wanted to mention, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the salary of dollar amount savings that we have, one thing that we have not budgeted for yet, we have not done an appropriation for, is the 3%, or I'm sorry, the $3,000 bonus that we gave to all of our AFSCME employees. And I think the plan is not to ask for a budget amendment, but that dollar amount would then reduce the savings amount in personnel.
That's correct.
So that is not showing up in our budget amendment 2025 list. So just keep that in mind, that that's a liability that is going to go against those savings.
Ms. Jett.
And also just a reminder that all of this forecasting for fiscal year 26 does not include any projected increase on the FOP negotiations. So those salaries are being held flat in the fiscal year 26, which is not going to be the case, but we have not projected any type of increase at all. We have no idea what that's going to end up being.
And in terms of the employee health insurance, which we're also waiting on, do we have a timeline for when we'll have numbers on that?
We hope to have the proposal for we hope to have the vote from the LMHIC for the board to approve at the September county board meeting.
Mr. Cagle.
I just ran the quick numbers. It's $758,000 if we eliminate all of the vacancies from pre-2024. And there's 12.
Can you add the AFSCME bonuses to that? Mr. Sullard.
That's what I was going to ask, is how many AFSCME employees for times 3,000 are we talking about to reduce that savings?
Ms. Jett.
It's gonna, if you do 3,000 times 150, you're in the right ballpark. I also just want to add to Mr. Kegel's equation to keep in mind, these are not all general fund positions. So some of them are special fund and some of them are reimbursed. So it's not going to equate to a dollar for dollar general fund savings.
So, Mr. Cagle.
I was just going to clarify then. So for vacancies that are pre-2024 that would impact general fund balance, look to see those cut in a proposed budget going forward, in addition to the cuts that we've discussed for the 3% and 1%, I think is what Brett suggested. Is that
Point of order, please.
Sorry.
Don't speak without being recognized and use your mic. So, okay, so to recap in terms of what we're asking for, at least so far, is for Travis, we would want both a 1% and a 3% cut, just the raw numbers on that. Travis, yeah.
For clarification, you asked for the 1% plus the 2 million from public safety sales tax. I mean, it'd still be the same raw number. It would just be an additional 2 million, but I just want to make sure I understood.
Well, that's what you said. I remember earlier, the 1% option, yes, because unrestricted fund balance expense ratio, you were talking about the 1% there. I think that would be with the $2 million.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so the 1 and the 3. And then we're also wanting to see more specific numbers on if we were to eliminate vacant positions, a dollar amount if we cut positions that have been left vacant since 2024.
In the general fund.
In the general fund, yes.
Just going to ask for clarification to make sure I understood what that equation request was as well. So I got it now.
Does that, okay, you got it. Okay. Anything else? Going once. Okay, so then a reminder, to reach out to department heads if you have more specific questions on their individual asks and budgets. Got to get back to my agenda. Okay, I have no other business. I have no chair's report. And items to be placed on the consent agenda would be A2, B2, 3, 4, and 5, and D3. Thank you.
All right, first up, we have board communications. Any communications from the board? Ms. Carter.
I don't know if you guys have paid attention or not, but the public is very upset. For one, being that we are going to be cutting elected officials' salaries. We are not taking in consideration the bloated salaries in the executive's office. Another thing, I tried to think back to when there was any type of consolidation that's been done since I've been on the board. And from what I can remember, the Recorder of Deeds office, when it merged with the clerk's office. And I don't know for sure, so please do not jump down my throat, but I thought it was between a $10,000 to $15,000 increase to the clerk's salary. That was debatable. I think some on the board didn't even want that to happen when that merge took place. But here we are asking to make cuts. But then when we're looking at salaries of the employees in the executive's office, we're not even talking about none of that. I don't understand that. How do we not let our employees, our county employees, get their raise, which they've been asking for years? And then when I seen the paperwork behind Michelle's jet salary increase, it was Suzanne Brock's signature and the executive signature, and that's all that was needed to pull it through. I think that this board, it's really got some problems. We can jump down the auditor's throat, but then there's issues going on in the executive's office, and we do not say anything because we've established friendships instead of looking at the whole picture. So what I have been doing is I've been reaching out to the public. Some of these seats needs to change because of the friendships I feel like that have been gained. We're not looking at the public's best interest. We cannot justify a deficit on this end, but yet we can add a salary increase of $40,000, $50,000 to a position. Make it make sense is all I'm asking. And if anything like that is being done, as the board, we should be notified. How is it that we hear so much information concerning our county board through the media? I don't understand, but I'm hoping for some clarity. And I would definitely hope that we look for October meeting that we would rescind Michelle's jet salary. So I asked a couple of people how something like this will work out. And so what I've heard multiple times is that when a person is in administrative position and under their job duties, something like this does happen. People do quit, people do get fired. And so they would have 20 hours. If they're working a 40-hour week, they would have 20 hours at their administrative pay and then 20 hours at the facilities director's salary. Something like that needs to be worked out. I think you should be very shamed of the fact of what our county workers just went through, bargaining, almost closing the county down of all business, okay? But we're not looking at the fact of what the administrative salary is. Something else I want to point back to, and I'll end at this. I look back at the county executive's Facebook page when he was running for county executive, and he mentioned that he's reducing the salary of the county executive position. But then here we are years later, and we see, I know, maybe 2 to 3 bloated salaries that's over what the previous county executive made. Make it make sense. I'm so confused. And then there's a selected group of people on this board that get information, and then the rest are just shunned out. That's not right. As the finance director, vice chair of the finances, I mean, I just, that's the only 2 people that I can look at. And I feel like that lack of transparency in the community, you're losing credibility in what you're doing. And so I just wanted to bring that to the community's attention. And I also want to like the community to please serve your community. Please run for some of these elected official positions if you feel like you can do better than what the current people are doing, because we need some help. This is not right. I will never agree to this, and we need change. We definitely need change. So thank you.
Ellie, then Matt. Those are the hands I've seen so far.
I'll try to be pretty brief, but I do want to address the concerns that were just raised. First of all, our county executive salary, and all of this information is in the binders that we have right here. You can see the exact numbers. County executive salary is significantly lower than any other elected official in this county, I want to say by about $30,000 to $40,000. Next, if we're talking about our director of administration, compared to all the other director positions, she has the lowest salary. And it is pretty standard practice when taking on another position temporarily to get a temporary bump to your salary for those extra duties that you've taken on. And so that's what's happened. And as was pointed out earlier in our meeting, by doing that, we're saving money in the executive's office because we're not hiring a new position. So I just wanted to make sure that that information was out there. But if you look at other director positions, director of facilities, director of finance, those positions all make, director of IT, they all make more than the director of administration. So from a finance perspective, I don't see any bloated salary there.
Mr. Sellard?
Yeah, just to add some further information, Mr. Summers is an elected position, county executive countywide, and Ms. Jett works in that office. What is being discussed is not any different than going to Treasurer Clark and saying you need to pay David Palmer differently because I don't like it. That's the same idea. We would never do that, but it's being talked about right now because of who it is. So it's not about making friends, it's about making enemies and running down that road.
Ms. Lakshmi and then Mr. Farn.
I just also like to quickly point out that it was not the county executive that, excuse me, set that salary. It was the county board who voted to reduce that salary. The prior county executive made more money, and we voted, was that 2020? No, 2022 to reduce that salary.
Mr. Farney?
I need to correct one of the things that you brought up, Ms. Carter. I did not learn about this salary adjustment until I got your email. So thank you for that email. That was the first time I heard about it.
Further communications? Mr. Thorsland?
Yeah, I'm going to try to take it away from the dialogue back to communications. Thank you for funding every year in the budget, the Lincoln Legacy Committee. You all got these on your desks. There's one for you, one for your friend. Surprisingly, it has a lot of stuff in it for a little brochure. And if you go do some of the things, they're actually sort of fun on a nice summer day. So thank you for that. Secondly, we probably heard about this huge donation to rename the Memorial Stadium, a historic edifice on the prairie that's supposed to memorialize soldiers, now going to be named by some guy who donated $100 million to the Department of Intercollegiate Athletics, probably the least wanting division on campus. I'm not asking for a resolution or anything. I'm just going to vent right now to the public. I got a comment from a former board member, Jen Straub, in a little bit of discussion. Imagine how many people that could house. Imagine what we could do with the Time Center. Imagine what we could do with the lady that was here a few weeks ago talking about the cuts to SNAP in the county. Instead, we have somebody whose job has been to be one of these merger acquisition octopuses that goes out and gets inky ick all over everything and needs to have their name on a building instead of having their name on a program. I find it kind of appalling. I don't know what else to say about that, except that it's disgusting while we're sitting here talking about asking department heads to cut 3% of their budget, that we're talking about trying to save, $1.7 million, that this rich man with feelings of inadequacy has to put his name on things. And I'm sorry, I don't care. So I had to vent that. It's been kind of burning on me all through the meeting. Thanks.
Mr. Wilson, then Mr. Pugh.
You want to go first? All right, 2 items. One, lest we forget, Thursday is the 24th anniversary of 9/11. And on September 11, 2001, 19 terrorists associated with the Al-Qaeda Islamic extremist group hijacked 4 commercial airlines. Have you ever seen that movie, 4 planes, 4 flights? 4 commercial airlines scheduled to fly from the East Coast to California. In a coordinated attack that turned the planes into weapons, the terrorists intentionally flew 2 of the planes into the Twin Towers. And then there's the Tunnel to Towers fundraising. I'm sure you're familiar with that. Of the World Trade Center, a 3rd plane into the Pentagon. And then number 4, passengers and crew members of the 4th plane launched a counterattack, forcing the hijacked plane to crash into Somerset County. The 9/11 attacks killed 2,977 people. This was the single largest loss of life resulting from a foreign attack on American soil. The attacks caused the deaths of 441 first responders, the greatest loss of emergency responders in a single day in American history. So then in context, Pearl Harbor, also a bad day. 2,400 military personnel and civilian soldiers lost their life. So we should never forget this. And then even more recently, even more poignant to us here in Champaign County, a couple of days ago, two Champaign Fire Department firefighters and one ambulance EMT individual responding to a call to assist somebody were attacked and stabbed, and some multiple stabbings. And I heard tonight that they're now out of the hospital and home recovering. But can you imagine being stabbed 9 times with a 9-inch knife? That would be really terrible. Another individual had his lung punctured with that same knife. So the heroic act of firefighters, paramedics, and police prevented even a worse outcome. So we owe our first responders, obviously, a lot of due respect. No one anticipates trying to help somebody out, going to a home, and then not coming home that night. So as a community, let's continue to keep these officers in our thoughts and prayers. And yes, prayers do work for a thorough recovery. And just a reminder, a 9/11 memorial ceremony will be conducted at 8:45 this Thursday at the Champaign Fire Police Memorial. So we should never forget. And then one quick comment. I had an earful from one of my constituents, and I know I'm poking the bear one more time. I am poking the bear one more time, but just to be faithful to that person that called me, it, at least in that person's mind, it just seems a 60% increase in salary. I mean, it's nice to have a 60%, a 10% increase in salary, maybe 5, but a 60% increase in salary does appear to a number of people. I'm not saying everyone, but to a number of people to be slightly excessive. So end of my comment.
Mr. Pugh, did you still?
Yeah, just reminding people that electronics recycling is going on now. Sign up. Those spots do go fast. And please look at the list before you take stuff to them.
Ms. Carter?
Was that event for 9/11? Did you say West Side Park?
Yes, ma'am, right where the memorial is.
Thank you. Something else I wanted to share. For so many years, 9/11 was a very sad day for this country. I remember I was 21 years old watching those planes go into the Twin Towers. I got pregnant with Seth, and I had some complications being an older woman having a baby. And so the doctor says, well, you know, you got preeclampsia. I was swelling really bad, had high blood pressure. And so I risked having a stroke giving birth. And so the doctor says, well, you can choose 9/11 or 9/22. And I said, well, you know what? 9/11 is such a sad day. I don't want to choose that as the day that I would be induced. So I chose 9/22, and I went in labor early. I had my son on 9/11. So my son, Seth Carter, was born on 9/11. And so I one day he comes home and he's like, Mom, I didn't know what happened on 9/11. That's my birthday, and I'm sad about that. And I say, you know what, son, for so many years, I was also sad about that situation that happened on your birthday. But I was thankful that the Lord blessed me on a day that I had looked down on with a day that I am able to celebrate my son. So always giving remembrance of what happened on that day. Something else that I wanted to mention real quick. I know you guys are ready to go. But look, I want to mention one more time before we go, chop from the top, okay? Many union employees would know what that means. Members, union members. So once again, we're looking at cuts, chop from the top. Thank you.
See, I feel like everybody that wants to speak has already had one chance. We still have a closed session to have. Happy birthday to Seth. Okay. Mr. Pugh,
Yeah,
you,
it's
1 minute.
9/11. If you are a veteran, come to post 559. There will be a meal at 7 o'clock. It's free.
Excellent recommendation. All right, I close communications. We have other business. Mr. Cagle, do you have a motion to make?
Move that we enter into executive session pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C1 to consider employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of an employee. Pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C3 to consider the employment, performance, or dismissal of a public official, and pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C11 to consider litigation that is probable or imminent against or on behalf of Champaign County. Further move that the following individuals remain present: Assistant State's Attorney Andrew Beckett, Assistant State's Attorney Melvin Stevens, Director of Administration Michelle Jett, HR Manager Suzanne Brock, Budget Director Travis Woodcock, County Executive Steve Summers, Recording Secretary Megan Robinson.
Have a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Farney seconds. This calls for a roll call.
Pugh,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Fullard,
Yes.
Thorsland,
Yes.
Vantage Theorenot,
Yes.